anyone who's watched this channel for a while knows that I tend to concentrate primarily on the 60s and 70s, but every once in a while I feel it necessary to go back to where it all began, back to the 1950s, and Little Richard's a cappella vocal intro on Tutti Frutti, recorded in 1955, might very well be described as the birth cry of rock and roll. This intro is very brief and to the point. I believe it's the shortest one I'm going to cover in this video, but it absolutely sets a perfect mood, and it absolutely altered the trajectory of popular music. Now, a cool thing about this one that most people don't realize, it's more than just nonsense words. What Little Richard is doing here is imitating a syncopated drum pattern with his voice, right? Wop, bop, luma, bala, bam, bum. It's very cool when you think about it in that light. And it gets even better when you learn that the whole thing was inspired by a job that Richard had back in his early days. Get this, he was a dishwasher at a Greyhound bus station in Macon, Georgia. And in response to the metallic clanking of the kitchenware as it piled up, he would apparently yell out to his boss, a wop bop a loo man, balop bam boom, take him out. Great stuff. I think I'll probably end this segment on a famous quote from John Lennon when asked about rock and roll in general. He said, "No one's ever improved on Tutti Frutti for my money." I wonder if this one might surprise a few people. My channel is mostly a rock channel, but my God, you can't deny that this is one of the most famous and instantly recognizable vocal arrangements of all time. Now, I'm presenting these intros in chronological order. We started in 1955. For this one, we've jumped ahead in time. What we just heard was the famous 1961 version of The Lion Sleeps Tonight by the Tokens. But this song has a history going much further back than that. The song has Zulu origins and was originally written and recorded way back in 1939 by South African musician Solomon Linda and his group called the Evening Birds. At that point, it was called Mbube. I hope my pronunciation is correct on that. The rhythmic ostinato vocal chant that's really the driving force behind this tune was originally Uyimbube, which means you are a lion. But when American folk musician Pete Seeger got a hold of this original recording in the early 1950s, he misheard it as Weemawe and used that term on his recording. But music can often be like that old telephone game we used to play as kids, right? Everybody sits around in a circle. Someone starts by whispering a secret phrase into the ear of the next person. It goes around, and by the time it gets all the way, it's generally been mangled beyond recognition. So when the Tokens got a hold of this one, they made another change. They added an extra syllable on the beginning, the ah syllable. So we get the version we all know and love. Well, maybe some people don't love this one, but you know what I'm talking about. A Weemawe, a Weemawe. I think it really adds a lot to the rhythmic drive. And I think it's that, along with that distinctively nasal solo vocal intro by singer Jay Siegel, that made this version so special. I've seen that intro described as falsetto. I don't know, it sounds kind of fuller and more robust to me, more like a head voice. But any vocalists out there who want to weigh in, please do.
Paperback writer.
I really had several options I could have gone with for a Beatles entry here. I could have gone Nowhere Man. I notice a lot of people mention Hey Jude in videos like this. To me, that's not so much a good one. Paul literally gets one word out of his mouth before the piano comes in. I'm more interested in purely a cappella intros. Mr. Moonlight is another one. Definitely not a favorite song in the Beatles catalog, but killer vocal intro from John on that. But I think Paperback Writer is probably the coolest and most innovative. The great thing about this one, it's not just a simple vocal harmony, but it's really more about something called antiphony. And if you want a sort of layman's term for that, it's call and response. The different parts respond to each other in this sort of cascading wave, and they're all quite different. Now, of course, the main part is Paul McCartney. That's the one that I think anyone who's familiar with the song would recognize. Paperback Writer. Part 2 comes in quite a bit later than part 1, kind of like a round where the vocal entries are staggered. It starts on the third beat after part 1 has commenced. 1, 2, Paperback Writer. Part 3 is all over the place. It starts in full chest voice and ends in a Beach Boy-esque falsetto. Paperback, paperback, writer, writer. And finally, part 4 is the most straightforward. It consists primarily of a long held note. Paperback. Great stuff. Famed Beatles producer George Martin described these vocals provided by Paul, John, and George as a series of slow contrapuntal statements rarely tried in rock. The Beatles also used a lot of overdubbing to create that wall of sound effect. And another thing that contributed to that effect was the use of something called ADT, automatic double tracking, which was invented by EMI studio engineer Ken Townsend. It involved linking 2 tape machines to automatically double track any vocal, but the machines had a millisecond time delay, which helped create that effect of a myriad of voices.
I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way. I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way.
I think this one is much more straightforward than Day Tripper, which is interesting. We usually think of Yes's music as being far more complex than that of the Beatles, but this one is essentially standard 3-part block harmony provided by Yes's lead vocalist John Anderson and backed up by bassist Chris Squire and guitarist Steve Howe. They're basically creating a series of major and minor triads. They start off on a little E major triad. Not surprisingly, John Anderson takes the high part. He's actually singing the 5th of the triad. That's this B note right here. Essentially, he's doing this. Probably the most audible part. Now, between Squire and Howe, I'm not sure who's doing the 3rd and who's doing the 5th, but the next lowest part would be the 3rd, and that's something like this. And the low part, the root. Another very important element of this one is the widespread use of syncopation. I talk about this a lot on the channel. Remember, syncopation is basically where the upbeats of a measure are stressed rather than the downbeats. So if we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you can see the ands are the upbeats. Check it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. I've seen all good P pull, turn their heads. You get the message. It's all on the upbeats. And it all serves as a great setup to that sort of Renaissance feeling bit that follows. Steve Howe enters playing something called a laúd, which is a Spanish lute instrument.
Hey, hey, mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove.
All right, so I kind of cheated on this one. I really wanted to make these songs that start with just vocals. But as most of you probably know, technically this one starts with a sort of trippy sonic collage created by Jimmy Page. We hear what sounds like multiple guitars. I hear at least one bass guitar, maybe some pick scrapes on the guitars. And if any of you have ever done old school recording on tape, we hear the unmistakable sound of a reel-to-reel tape firing up. I believe I once read Page saying that he wanted it to sound like a guitar army sort of warming up, and you know, it kind of does. Then we get the briefest of pauses, and it's Robert. And really not too much to say about this one. This is 1971. Plant is at the peak of his vocal powers. He just belts out that opening verse, a sort of simple A minor pentatonic bluesy vocal riff. Hey, hey, mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. And we know exactly what we're in for. And of course, the coolest thing is they maintain this pattern throughout the song, right? Robert continues to belt out those a cappella lines, followed up by the band, a great call and response.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes.
I don't think there's any way you could leave this one off a top 10 on this subject, is there? Now, analyzing all of the vocals on Bohemian Rhapsody could probably take up 10 different YouTube videos. There's so much going on. But thankfully, we're limiting ourselves to just the intro, which is kind of complex enough. There's a lot of conflicting information out there about who sings what on this tune. Now, I'm convinced that 3 of the members of Queen sing on Bohemian Rhapsody at one point or another. You've got Freddie Mercury, of course, drummer Roger Taylor, the great unsung vocal hero of Queen. He hits those crazy high notes that even Freddie can't get at times. And then you've got guitarist Brian May. Now, bassist John Deacon does not sing on Bohemian Rhapsody, even though he appears in the video next to the other guys as if he does. But the a cappella vocal intro, which is of course all we're concerned about here, again, in spite of sources that say otherwise, I'm convinced is 100% Freddie Mercury. I just listened back again very closely, and all of those voices sound like different shades of Freddie to me. Now, this part is a great example of what's sometimes called close harmony, which is exactly what it sounds like. This is where you have several voices packed very closely together, generally within the same octave. And that's exactly what we get here. Now, I believe there are 4 parts in the very beginning here. Let's start with the lowest part on the opening phrase. Is this the real life? Right? That's a D. The next voice is a minor third above. And then we get, this is an interesting one, we go up a major second above that last one. So again, very close intervals packed together. And then the high. Now you put that all together and you get this wacky chord that I think I can barely reach on my guitar. That close harmony gives such a beautifully dense sound. But Queen didn't stop there. They went on to do an insane amount of overdubbing. There are stories out there about the various band members spending 10 or 12 hours a day singing the same part over and over. Now, they only had 24 tracks to work with, so they used a technique where you do what's called bouncing tracks onto other tracks. So you record a bunch of individual parts, and then you can consolidate a bunch of those onto a single track. You repeat this process over and over, and it allows you to essentially squeeze more tracks out of the system.
Let me bring you songs from the woods to make you feel much better than you could know. Better than you could dust you down from tip to toe. Dust you down from tip to toe. Show you how the garden grows. Show you how the garden grows. Hold you steady as you go. Hold steady as you join the chorus if you can. It'll make of you an honest man.
You really gotta love British 70s prog rock bands. Where else can you expect to hear a song that opens with a 40-second Renaissance madrigal, a musical style that first developed in 14th century Italy? So why do I call this a madrigal? Well, let's look at the usual characteristics that we find in a madrigal. Number one, they are usually a cappella. Check. Number two, they usually contain multiple independent vocal lines. Check. And they are usually on secular rather than religious subjects. Check.
Let me bring you songs from the woods.
Great mix of solo and harmony vocals.
Than you could know. Better than you could dust you down from tip to toe. Dust you down from tip to toe. Show you how
I love how those guys answer back in the background.
Hold you steady as you go. Hold steady as you join the chorus if you can.
And they converge and join together there. That's so cool. Right where he says, join the chorus if you can. By the way, as with Freddie Mercury on Bohemian Rhapsody, all the voices you just heard are Ian Anderson multi-tracked. The Songs from the Wood album was inspired by a book on English folklore that Ian Anderson received as a Christmas gift. And this title track with its a cappella intro opens the album and serves as a perfect prologue, welcoming the listener to a world of folklore, nature, and myth.
If you change your mind,
take a chance,
I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me. If you need me, let me know. Gonna be around. If you got no place to go when you're feeling down.
This one's got to take the prize for biggest earworm of the group. Good luck getting this one out of your head now that you've heard it. I think my favorite part about this one is the great contrast between the male and female voices. Agnetha and Frida's voices are bright and melodic. The guys, of course, deep, bassy, and rhythmic. The girl's part works in quick bursts, very stop and start with spaces in between. If you change your mind, I'm the first in line, so on and so forth. By the way, some syncopation at work here as well. Benny and Bjorn's part is relentless. It just continues on and on and on. In fact, it was so relentless that they couldn't record it all in one go. So they ended up having to resort to a very painstaking process to get that loop effect throughout the song. Cutting and pasting wasn't so easy in 1978, so they recorded short, staggered sections, physically cut the tape, and then meticulously splice the pieces together to create that continuous loop and get around the problem of the guys not having enough time to take a breath.
Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. Lawman is putting an end to my running, and I'm so far from my home. Oh, mama, I can hear you a-crying. You're so scared and all alone. Hangman is coming down from the gallows, and I don't have very long.
The fact that we even have this awesome a cappella vocal intro on Styx's Renegade is a bit of a fluke. It was not originally intended to be that way. Tommy Shaw wrote the song on an upright piano as a sort of slow, somber dirge, but there was instrumentation from start to finish. And then at some point during the mixing, engineer Barry Mraz muted all the instruments and played the song back to the group with only their unadorned voices to show them how incredible they sounded together. And luckily the boys agreed and decided that the intro would be a cappella. The only thing we hear in that intro, other than the voices, is a very faint bass drum just punctuating every now and then, which always made me think of the condemned prisoner's heartbeat. The song, of course, starts with Tommy Shaw solo, and his melody very clearly implies a G minor chord. It's a very simple melody, very tight melody, 3 notes only, flatted third, second, and root of the G minor scale. Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life. And we hear 2 lines that way, then 2 more voices join in. I believe we have guitarist James Young in the middle. Now, the interesting thing, again, Shaw has laid out a very minor feel, but James Young comes in with a major third as the harmony. I'm in fear for my life from the long, right? That's kind of unusual. It brightens things a little bit, but it still feels very somber. And then we get Dennis DeYoung on top with the 5th. His voice is very recognizable. Oh, mama, I can hear you a-crying. The whole thing sounds very stark yet hypnotic, like some kind of chain gang prison chant.
There are stars in the southern sky, southward as you go. There is moonlight and moss in the trees. Down the 7 Bridges Road.
7 Bridges Road was originally written and recorded way back in 1969 by country artist Steve Young. But of course, the version that the majority of the world knows is by the Eagles. Now, the Eagles started out using it as a vocal warm-up. It became a backstage ritual. The group would sort of huddle around and get their voices in sync before going out on stage. But at some point, they took it onto the stage and even opened many of their shows with it. And it's now one of their signature pieces. I don't think it would be a stretch to say that the Eagles had the most technically perfect harmonies in rock. Now, even take a band like the Beatles, great harmonies, of course, but they were a little bit more loose about it. When you listen closely, sometimes one guy finishes a word a bit earlier than another. Sometimes John and Paul even sing a different word in places, and they left it in. That was just their style. But the Eagles, this stuff is flawless. Everything is synced up. Every vowel, every consonant, even the vibratos are perfectly synced. In fact, this is something that some people don't like about the Eagles. They claim that it's a little bit too slick. The melody outlines a very simple chord progression: D, C, G, back to D, right? There are stars in the southern sky. This is a 5-part harmony. The Eagles were one of those great 70s bands that seemed to grow on trees back then, where everyone or almost everyone could sing their ass off. The harmony is pretty straightforward here. It's just roots, thirds, and fifths on a D major triad. What I guess you would call the main part, the root, is sung by Glenn Frey. There. Right? Now, just below him, we have Joe Walsh singing A, which is the fifth. And then an octave below him, we have yet another A note, this one by Don Felder. He's the bass. All right, now moving back up again, just above Fry, we have Don Henley singing F sharp, that's the major third. And then one more, the high part was sung by either Randy Meisner or Timothy B. Schmidt, depending on who was in the band at the time. I always thought that was funny when the Eagles parted ways with Randy Meisner as bass player. They made sure to get another bass player who was basically a eunuch seemingly and could hit those crazy high notes. Right? So pretty crazy. You've got one root, one third, and 3/5, interestingly enough. But it's just beautiful. All right, that's it for now. Of course, I realize I've left off tons of amazing a cappella vocal intros here. No way around that when you're limited to 10, but that's all right. This will be fodder for more videos going forward on this very same subject. Please do consider a financial contribution in any amount if you enjoy the channel. Look in the description of the video. We've got Buy Me a Coffee, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, all the usual stuff. And of course, if nothing else, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Those things do help. All right, see you next time.